Hi, everyone. Welcome to this masterclass, How to Recognize Safe People in Your Life. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Laura Deneen, and I'm going to be your host and teacher today. And I am just really passionate about this topic. And thank you for joining me on this ride. Now, a quick disclaimer, this is absolutely not therapy. If you find it supportive to your therapy journey that you are already on, or perhaps you've never gone to therapy and something that I say today kind of sparks your interest, that is all wonderful. But this is not therapy. And I am a mental health therapist by trade. And so, of course, that does influence my perception on this idea of safety. So, we have different life stories and things that we've been through that perhaps impact our definition of safety. And so, as we're going through this material today, I would highly encourage you to really take what is helpful and leave the rest. And to also think about your own language and your own verbiage around this concept of safety. Another piece of this. So, when I am thinking about safety, I'm also thinking of it through the lens of different categories, or perhaps another way to see it is pieces of the pie. So, essentially, there are different categories of safety, whether that's physical safety, emotional safety, sexual safety, mental safety, relational safety, spiritual safety. I would really hope that you watch this masterclass and feel more confident in recognizing safe people in your life. My hope in this is that you're able to recognize more people that you feel safe with and that cheer you on in your victories and that grieve with you and that are really with you through life in a safe and supportive way. Just to really disclose some of my own story. So, before I started therapy, I really wasn't familiar with this concept of safety. And I remember my therapist asking me about, like, well, is that person safe? And I remember looking at her and, kind of curiously and really like in a contemplative way, thinking about, like, what do you mean, are they safe? So, over the past 12 or 13 years, as I have done my own healing work and been in therapy, I've personally had the gift of experiencing safety and then also passing that on to clients and talking about experiences with them in which they have felt unsafe. I have been in relationship with people that were unsafe and were not good for me. I also have done things in relationship that were not super healthy. I really want you to practice seeing this through the lens of compassion. If you have behaved in a way perhaps that felt unsafe to someone, I would encourage you to contemplate either repairing or perhaps learning from that experience. And so, really, the purpose of this masterclass is not to shame you. It's really just to encourage you to really determine how you cultivate safety in your relationships and how to recognize safe people. And if you're having any sort of emotional reaction, know that that is also appropriate. And my encouragement to you is to pay attention to that. So when we're having an emotional reaction to something that's said, one of the best things that we can do is pause and pay attention to what we are noticing in our bodies, what's coming up for us, what we might need to do as a result. Let's go ahead and dive into this topic today. So, we are actually going to start with what makes someone unsafe, in my opinion. And then we're going to lead into what makes someone safe. So, I will be referencing some notes that I have. And if you see me looking down, but I really just want this to feel engaging and relational and warm and encouraging and all the things. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, when I'm thinking about what makes someone unsafe, one of the first things that came to mind for me that I see show up quite frequently in my office is poor communication. And, clients that have been on the receiving end of that, or perhaps they've engaged in poor communication with other people. And then I would add to that a lack of awareness around the poor communication itself. So if I don't say that with this topic of unsafety, this lack of awareness, that is really an undercurrent and a thread throughout this masterclass that I just want you all to remember and to be thinking about. So remember, on the communication spectrum, we've got different styles of communicating with other people. So over here, there is passive communication. Over here on the spectrum, we've got aggressive communication. Really, the sweet spot in the middle is assertive communication. And then we can also engage in what we call passive aggressive communication. So we're going to just talk there for a minute or sit there for a minute around this concept of poor or unhealthy communication and how that leads to unsafety. So when we're on the right end of the spectrum, this is where we are maybe aggressive and we are telling what to think versus asking, and we are aggressive in our way of relating to other people. And this doesn't feel good because typically, if we are on the receiving end of that, it can just be really, really hard. It can feel like we are being put down by the other person. It can feel like our opinion doesn't matter. So, someone that is an aggressive communicator makes demands. They might belittle or stonewall or attack the other person on the receiving end. It doesn't lead to effective ways of getting our needs met. So that's really that aggressive style of communication. Over here on the left end of the spectrum, that is really more of that passive communication. So that's where perhaps we are unhealthy in the way that we communicate and we never really tell other people or what we're feeling. And passive communicators oftentimes have built up resentment. And that's because they have gotten really good at squishing down their needs or their wants or their feelings or perhaps what's bothering them. And sometimes this can lead to like an outburst, but passive communicators almost expect other people to read their minds, or oftentimes that can be the case. We as humans are not mind readers, and we cannot we sometimes do make assumptions, but it's healthy to make assumptions about what other people are feeling or needing. And so that style of communication, that passivity, that leads to unsafety in relationship because it might leave the person on the receiving end kind of wondering what someone else is feeling or trying to play the guessing game. That doesn't feel good for either party because the communicator is building resentment and the other person doesn't actually ever know what that person is truly feeling. So then that third kind of unhealthy style of communicating, that is that passive aggressive tendency. And this is where it gets a little tricky. I kind of explain it to my clients that it's a way of eliciting a response in someone else. And it's designed to communicate through manipulation. And it can feel really, really, really bad to the other person. It's almost like you kind of feel bad, but you're not really sure why you feel bad, but something was said that was kind of funny or maybe tapped on a pain point in you, but it wasn't necessarily said in an overt way. It was kind of muddied, if you will. That could be a sign that someone in your life has communicated in a passive aggressive way. So it's passive, but again, the aggressive part, it can feel manipulative because it's designed to elicit a response in the recipient, so in the person receiving the communication. So when we think about healthy communication, this is that piece around assertiveness, and we will get to that around what makes people safe. But for now, we're kind of sticking with this idea of unsafety. So first and foremost, poor communication, unhealthy communication. So that's passivity or aggressiveness or even passive aggressiveness. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Take care.